Aloha! I'm Jason Schwartz and I'm here in the green room. We have a guest today, just by coincidence. I don't know if it is, but it sure is true. This is Debra Greene.
Aloha.
Debra is here really for a very important subject. You know, sometimes we have music, sometimes we have people that are talking about politics or whatever. But today, we're going to talk about something called a smart meter, which you're going to find out in just a second isn't so smart. Or at least I think you'll make your own decision, but wait till you hear this. First of all, Debra, thank you for joining me here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Where should we begin? How did you get involved to even hear about a smart meter and bring us to this point? Because you've been a champion to let people know, and that's why we're doing this show, because we want all of you to share this show and share these ideas and websites with everyone that you know, okay?
Yes. Well, I first got involved in smart meters because I'm an energy health specialist, which means I teach people about their energy levels and the different aspects of their energy and how to improve their energies and so forth. And I began to discover that the high frequency, radio frequency radiation, such as that is emitted by cell phones and Wi-Fi on the computer and baby monitors and things like that, that has a really detrimental effect on our energy system. And so then when I heard that smart meters were coming to Maui, I got really alarmed.
For those out of our audience, when you say our energy system, can you give them a quick idea of what that means? I mean, most people know the physical body.
Right. Well, energy is really the most important thing. It's the most important aspect to us, because if you don't have energy, you really can't function on any level at all. I mean, if you don't have energy, you can't move around, you know, in your physical body. If you don't have energy emotionally, you can be really off. If you don't have energy, your mind doesn't function well, you know, becomes fuzzy and foggy and confused. And
so it's that, it's physical energy is what you're talking about.
Well, you know, it turns out that our energy is much more than physical. And, you know, I'm not so much talking about physical energy, I'm actually talking about non-physical energy. And sometimes it's referred to as the biofield, or as the vital body, or sometimes the etheric body. But this energy dimension, this energy body aspect to us was formally recognized by the National Institutes of Health. In 1995, they formally recognized the existence of this non-physical energy aspect of human beings.
Ah.
Yeah.
That my energy body could impact your energy body.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, and definitely
and carries further than our physical surface,
yes,
is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
It permeates, it's interwoven into the physical body through the chakra system and the meridian system. You've maybe heard those terms before. So those are the distribution channels of this energy as it's woven into the physical body, and it also extends beyond the physical body for a couple of inches. And the NIH defined this energy body as a non-physical energy that permeates and surrounds the human body.
Well described.
Yeah.
They got it.
They did. Which means that there was enough research legitimizing the existence of this energy body for them to make this formal, you know, declaration.
And this energy body is important in the way, like you say, we function and survive and thrive.
It's
so here comes
smart
vital.
Meters. Pardon my pun.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it is.
So here comes smart meters. You heard that smart meters were coming to Hawaii.
Yes.
What's a smart meter?
Well, a smart meter is an electrical meter, and you know, it's like the electrical meter that you have on your home, also on schools, businesses, and so forth. And it's the meter that measures
Where
your
they read
usage.
Usage. Okay.
Correct. But I mean, it's not really like the existing electrical meter that most people have, because a smart meter is operating with a radio frequency signal that allows the meter to communicate, and it's actually a two-way communication. So the smart meter is designed to read what's going on inside your home and to track your electrical usage, and then it transmits, it communicates that information to what's called a smart grid. And the smart grid is all the little smart meters all hooked up together, into a network. And then the smart grid communicates with some computers. And in the case of the smart meters that are being installed on Maui, those computers actually are on the mainland. So all of the data from inside your home on Maui is being transmitted to computers on the mainland.
To what purpose? Are they able to then generate less power, less demand, or shift power to different places because of that? Or
yes,
is that what they say?
Yes, so the purpose of the smart meters and smart grid is to help make energy grid more efficient. And so because they're getting constant or relatively constant feedback, real-time feedback about electrical usage inside the homes,
right,
then they can help them control the grid better and move loads around so that we can avoid maxing out the grid at peak times and so forth. And the other purpose that it serves or is intended to serve, it's questionable. All of this is questionable, by the way. But I'm just telling you what, what the purpose of it is.
Because why would they even introduce this, right?
So the other thing that it is supposed to do is give consumers a very detailed feed out of their electrical usage. And so eventually they're going to launch websites where people can log in and see what's happening in terms of individual appliances or electrical devices that they're using in their homes, and they can analyze them and say, oh gee, that blow dryer that I'm using is really sucking up a lot of energy, or when I turn on my...
Don't we already know that? I mean, without any computer reading what I'm doing, every appliance has a rating on it.
Right.
So why don't we just educate people about a dryer uses a lot of electricity. Mm-hmm. A refrigerator uses a lot of electricity. An electric water heater uses a lot of electricity.
Oh, I'm totally with you, Jason.
Here I am.
I'm not here to defend smart meters or the smart grid, believe me.
But that's why I'm bringing it up even to our audience.
Yes.
To say, yeah, a computer to tell you what your appliances are doing. Well, I don't know if you need that. And the other things that you brought up, which we're going to get into more, is what it does to our energy bodies and how it affects us.
Right, and there's also, basically there's three concerns about the smart meters and smart grid. One is the negative health effects from radio frequency radiation being, pretty much constantly emitted from these smart meters. Now, I'll talk later about what constantly means, because it's not incessant, but it's a lot. And the health effects, the negative health effects, are a major concern. The second concern is privacy invasion and surveillance aspects of the smart meters, because they're basically spying on us. And the third concern is that the interconnectedness of this huge, massive, conglomerate smart grid really makes all of our electrical grid way more vulnerable to cyber attack and to natural phenomena like solar flares.
So,
So instead of it just, if there's a solar flare, for example, in 1989, when a solar flare took out the entire power system in the province of Quebec in Canada, that was a natural phenomenon. That was a solar flare. And these kinds of electronics are very vulnerable to things like solar flares. And if something like that should happen, not only would it be confined to one province or one state or one area, but it has the potential to take down the entire grid. And one of the potentials of the smart grid is this kind of interconnectivity, where it's not even isolated to one, neighborhood, one area, one state, but it becomes, yes.
Yeah, large.
A national and
large
potentially even international.
So,
yeah.
for those that might think terrorism,
Yes.
you're now posing
Correct.
a really good thing to aim at.
Correct. To the extent that cyber attack expert David Chalk recently came out saying that there is 100% certainty of catastrophic failure of the smart grid within 3 years.
Wow.
Yes. And so he's calling for an urgent halt to this smart grid.
So now we've seen already, I say we've seen already, when you heard about it, it's coming here, so you've heard about it, so it's nothing new, right?
No, in fact, on the mainland, there are many smart meters and smart grids. In the state of California, where I think they have probably the highest concentration, they just a couple of days ago installed their 9 millionth smart meter. So, high concentration of smart meters in the state of California and other states as well, and as well as in Canada. So it's, I first heard about it on the mainland and was thinking and hoping, okay, maybe it will just stay there, because people have been having all kinds of problems as a result of having smart meters installed in their homes.
Problems like what?
Health problems.
Be specific if you can for
Well,
everybody. The reason I want to be specific is only because even though we look here and we see a camera lens, we know there are going to be millions of people talking about a viral video. People need to hear about this.
Yes.
And so I just want to be specific on
Right,
something.
well, the health effects of radio frequency radiation are quite well established, and there's a whole range of them. And, at one end of the continuum we have cancers, particularly tumors, brain tumors. Radio frequency radiation has been linked to childhood leukemia, also sleep disorders, neurological dysfunctions, dysfunctions in cell behavior. It compromises the immune system. It's also been tied to inhibited brain functioning, confusion, dementia.
Wow.
The list goes on. And recently, what was the most recent study I read, linked to autism. So, and there's been one researcher in this arena of radio frequency radiation who has come out and said that there is virtually no aspect of human biological functioning that is not affected by radio frequency radiation.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yes, it is.
And
well, I could talk a little more about that.
Please.
Because one of the problems is most people don't know this. And they don't know about all these negative health effects. And that's because in the mainstream media, this issue is really confused. And we have reason to believe that confusion is purposeful and intentional on the part of the telecom industry, and they are, of course, in charge of all of these wireless technologies, cell phones, Wi-Fi, smart meters, all of this kind of technology is falls under this domain of the telecom industry. And the telecom industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And they rake in about $500 billion in revenue per year. And wow is right. And we have reason to believe that they don't have our best interest in mind. And they really want to just proliferate these kinds of technologies on a very rapid base without really investigating the effects on human beings and human health. An important piece of this is that the current regulations that govern radio frequency radiation, which is a high frequency radio level of radiation, and most of the guidelines which were set by the FCC were set back in the 1980s. And in the 1980s, we didn't have cell phones and Wi-Fi. We didn't have all of these technologies.
And it's never been updated.
Well, it has been updated, and apparently the most recent update, if I'm remembering it correctly, happened in 2001.
Okay.
But still, electromagnetic radiation has increased 1 million billion times in this 5-year window from 2003 to 2007.
1 million billion.
Yes, I mean it's a number that you can't even.
That's why
really...
you say it that way rather than a gazillionth.
Right.
So
it's
much
a very
that it is
mind-boggling,
dramatic,
yeah.
and we've seen medical costs go up, and people are having
Yes.
more and more health problems.
Yes.
Exponentially more and more and more, and food is a reason, and this is another major reason.
Yes. So, and that number, the increase of, electromagnetic radiation increasing 100 million billion times, that was, 2003 to 2007. Well, okay, we're in 2012 now. I mean, and it increases exponentially because, how many people have more than one cell phone? How many people have a cell phone plus an iPad, plus Wi-Fi on the computer? We just keep adding and adding, so it has like a compounding effect.
I see.
So the bottom line is that we are saturated with these frequencies, and that we're living in this grand experiment where we are all guinea pigs, and we didn't sign up to be guinea pigs in this experiment. Nobody asked our permission to, do this, and the effects on human health are really of grave concern because, as I started out saying a moment ago, when these regulations were set for these safety limits, they were based on people who work, like electrical engineers, who work with, radars, or they work in close proximity to technologies that emit, huge amounts of microwave frequency. That's another thing I need to say is radio frequency radiation is in the microwave frequency range. So we're talking about microwave energy here. And we know it has the capacity to cook things because we use it in microwave ovens. So that's the kind, when I say radio frequency radiation, I'm talking about microwave range frequency energy here.
And, like you also said, which is true, the more of these that are installed and the more devices we have that have that anyway.
Yes.
But this one is right in our home.
Yes.
And is sort of like creating a...
It's pervasive. So, I can choose to own a cell phone or not. I can choose to turn my cell phone off or have it on. I can choose to have Wi-Fi on my computer or to plug it in with a cable. That's my choice. But when I have a smart meter installed in my home, I have no control over it. I can't shut it off. It operates 24/7, 365, and I can't move it around. And in my home in particular, I live, you know, in Maui Meadows, which is where the pilot project is happening.
Right.
My electrical meter happens to be mounted on my bedroom wall. And that's a big concern because we don't want to be sleeping in close proximity to devices that emit, you know, this kind of radiation, because, you know, obviously there's major health effects to that. Now, I can't move the meter, so, you know, I would have to move my bedroom, I guess. Now, I mean, luckily with the Maui Meadows pilot project, it's voluntary, so they're not installing, you know, mandatory meters on Maui at this point in time. They are on the mainland installing. I mean, it's mandatory, yes. And on Kauai as well, mandatory smart meter installation until very recently, actually. On Kauai, they just recently got a federal injunction to stop the mandatory installation of these smart meters and allowed for a temporary opt-out. And so Kauai is having their own issues right now. Yeah.
So what kind of things can we ask our audience to do? Besides investigating and find out that everything that we're saying here, which we're going to give you some websites here in a minute, but what can they do?
Well, I think the most important thing is to educate yourselves. And there are lots of resources available, you know, online that expose, you know, the dark side of smart meters. So that's a big piece. I also invite you to please sign our petition. You know, we have a petition to stop the smart grid project in Hawaii, and the website for that is www.stopsmartmetershawaii.com. And that's our website, and on the website, on the opening page, you can click and sign the petition.
Oh, good.
So that's an empowering thing to do, is to sign the petition. And also on our website, we have a lot of resources, and we have a message board. And
Will we know when someone comes to our home and says, "Hi, we're ready to put in a smart meter"? Do they give you notice in some fashion?
Well, as I said earlier, here on Maui,
it's
voluntary, and so there shouldn't be anyone knocking on your door saying we're here to install a smart meter, unless you are renting. And if you are at a rental property, it's possible that your landlord or you know, might have signed up for the program, in which case you might not even get a knock on the door. I mean, they just would come and switch out your meter and put in a new one. So, you know, check your meter. Make sure that hasn't happened while you're gone.
I've looked at a smart meter, a picture I saw of a smart meter, and it says in, out. It is absolutely a two-way, it's a two-way device.
Yes, it's like a two-way radio. And they're licensed by the FCC, and they have wattage and, you know, everything else, yes. And they're digital, but not every digital meter is a smart meter, and sometimes there's confusion around that. And the difference between a digital meter, a net meter, a networked meter, and a smart meter is the smart meter has memory. It's tracking every minutia of your electrical life, and it also you know, communicates with a smart grid.
So it knows when you're up and when you're down and when you're in this room and
correct, and that all happens because every electrical device or appliance has a unique electrical signature, we could say. And so yes, they can tell what devices you're using, what appliances you're using, for how long you're using them, what rooms you're occupying in your home, you know, what time you get up in the morning, and, you know, what time you go to bed at night, and because of, you know, the use of lights and all kinds of things.
So the protection of all that information, like you said, it's a real invasion of our privacy.
It is a big invasion. It's like having a spy, you know, in your home. And the challenging thing about that is that it's all being recorded permanently, and we have not been told what is going to be done with that information. And that kind of information, those details about people's electrical lives and the devices that they're using and so forth, has a very high consumer value, meaning, marketing companies, companies that manufacture these devices, that information is golden to them.
Sure.
And we have no idea, what's being done with it, and we have, it could be just sold to the highest bidder. We really don't know because it's not being disclosed.
And it's held by each electric company, or is it a central?
No.
It's all central.
It's all centralized.
Wow.
And for example, I mentioned earlier, the information from inside your home, if you have a smart meter, the information from inside your home on Maui Meadows, in Maui, Hawaii, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, that information goes straight to the mainland. All of the details. It does not stay here. It doesn't stay on Maui, doesn't stay in Hawaii.
And at this point, it's not even, we don't have an interconnected grid power anyway, right?
Correct.
We're all islands. So why do they need that data?
It's just the way the smart grid works.
I'm just saying, why would they need that data? They don't.
It's-
Does it help them so they don't have to send out a meter reader?
Right, and
That's their
from
deal?
that respect, it's going to put local people out of work. Because, the meter readers come and read our meters. And now they're being replaced by computers on the mainland. Is this really what we want? I don't think so. In this economy, we need to pay attention to jobs and, supporting the people who live here. And instead, people are going to be, put out of work and replaced by computers on the mainland.
Sort of like when you go to the airport and they say, well, we have 2 ticket takers and 19 machines. I always wait for the ticket taker, and they say, well, you can use that machine. I say, well, if I keep using that machine, then I don't need to use you.
Right.
What is that doing? So
Yes.
isn't it funny that we're replacing ourselves with machines, and are we using the time that we have left for anything to make us greater beings?
Well, it's another interesting point of the whole smart meter thing is that the smart meters themselves do nothing to reduce our energy consumption, nothing whatsoever. And the whole issue is being totally greenwashed. And any savings that comes about is supposed to happen by people logging on to their website and tracking, looking at their consumption and then cutting down on using the appliances that are, electricity hogs or whatever. And the places that have this, it's being shown that people are not doing this. They're not accessing the websites. They're too busy.
Sort of like recycling.
They're living their lives and they're doing whatever, and they're too busy to actually do it. So this whole, myth about, people are going to learn what they're using and not using and how to use it better is a myth. Actually, it's not happening.
Well, that's why I just said about recycling. It's like they found that recycling happens best when people are forced to recycle. Otherwise, because voluntary is...
Well, and here's another thing now that you're speaking about forced, because the potential exists in a very real way for the smart meters to shut off appliances in your home. And, companies that are advancing these technologies readily talk about that. It's like, gee, think of the convenience. If you go on vacation and you forget to turn off your air conditioner, we can just do that for you. And yes, they have the capacity, because it's a two-way transmission in the smart meter, and they're designed to communicate with so-called smart appliances, that they can shut things off inside your home without you even being there. Now, to me, that's not a comforting thought. Like, I don't go, oh, yay, convenience. I go, I don't want somebody else shutting off my appliances and controlling my appliances.
Or it's, we're in our home using our air conditioner, and suddenly they read something and they say, wait, that air conditioner's been on too long. Let's turn it off.
Exactly. Or they say, oh, we're having a power outage on Oahu. I think Maui doesn't need that much power right now.
Right.
Anything could happen, anything could happen. So it is scary.
So let me make sure that we state stopsmartmetershawaii.com.
Yes.
Now, there are a lot of articles. I know that recently, so I mentioned it to someone in Montana, and they had heard about it. There was someone on a show at late night. So this information is out there. Are there any other websites people should be checking?
Yes, there are.
To be able to...
Yes. There's actually a couple more things that I would like to mention.
Oh, sure.
That I think are really important. And one thing is, I alluded to this earlier by saying that this issue is really confused, because you'll hear from the industry and you'll hear from the proponents that there is no research, talking about the negative health effects of this kind of, radiation. Well, the reason that that's so confused is because there's two different sets of research happening. And there's a very important distinction between those two sets of research that I'd like to explain.
Please.
So we know a lot about what is called ionizing radiation. And that's the radiation that comes from like X-rays and gamma rays, and it's very potent, very strong, and that's why when you go to the dentist office and get an X-ray, you have to put on a lead, apron and all of that. And that kind of radiation has been studied a lot, and much of the research was done on thermal effects, meaning the human body starts to heat up when it gets exposed to radiation like that.
Right.
Now, this other kind of radiation, which is radio frequency radiation or non-ionizing radiation, it's in a different frequency range. It's in the microwave frequency range. And a lot of the research that's being done on this higher frequency, radio frequency or microwave frequency radiation is still looking at it from that old perspective and saying, well, the human body doesn't heat up. There's no thermal effects from, using a cell phone or having a smart meter. Therefore, nothing's happening. Therefore, it's completely safe. Nothing's happening, in the physical body that makes this dangerous. And this is what confuses the issue so much, because the people who are proponents and the industry are pointing to old research and saying, no thermal effects, therefore safe. But those of us who know better, and I hope you will be among them, we know that we can't just study thermal effects of microwave frequency radiation, because there are many, many things that happen to the human body before it starts to heat up. And I can tell a little story about that if you'd like.
Please.
To help make that a little more vivid. And I apologize in advance because the story is hard to hear, but I'm just trying to make a point. And I'm going to talk about cats in a moment, and I want to say that I love cats, and I have cats. And please don't have the Humane Society call me, because I'm not advocating anything bad about cats, okay? And the other thing I want to say is, I'm not saying that your smart meter is a microwave oven, all right? So with all those, disclaimers,
Sure.
heading off what I'm about to say here, it's like this, Jason. If I have a microwave oven and I have a piece of meat, a steak, and I want to cook it, I put it in the microwave oven, I turn the microwave oven on, and eventually the microwave will cook the meat. The meat will heat up and it will cook eventually, right. Yeah? So those are thermal effects. That is the meat heating up. That's what they're trying to say we only need to look at when it comes to human beings or other living creatures. But here's the thing. If I take a living creature, not a dead piece of meat, right, but a living creature, like a cat. And the reason I pick cats is because they're biologically or genetically very similar to humans, by the way. Lots of research. Anyway, if I put the cat inside the microwave oven and I turn the microwave oven on, that cat is going to experience many, many changes before its body starts to heat up, before it actually starts to cook. It's going to experience levels of confusion and disorientation. It's going to experience many multiple levels of stress, you know, and with all of the effects of that. Many very dramatic and detrimental changes are going to happen to that living creature before its flesh actually starts to heat up and it starts to cook. And so I'm using this metaphor because those effects, that whole realm of other effects, you know, stress levels, brain functioning, psychological issues, emotional trauma, and so forth and so on, none of that is being looked at or accounted for by the industry. They only are saying, you human beings are like a dead piece of meat, and we're only going to look at thermal effects. We're not going to look at any of these other things that happen when living beings are exposed to these microwave frequency and radio frequency radiation.
Well, let me bring up something different but comparable. There's a gentleman named Nick Begich, Dr. Nick Begich, who's in Alaska. And his father used to be a senator from there, passed away, went down on an airplane flight. His brother, in fact, is, I think, senator now, or representative. He put out a book called Angels Don't Play This Harp, and it was HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, a program designed and used by the Navy for over-the-horizon radar to create effects to do exactly what you're saying they haven't studied. The Navy knows. A lot of people have heard about this HARP project and have been really alarmed by it. Well, here we are, it's being used on us through a different technology. So maybe there hasn't been study about the smart meter, but a high frequency, that's what we're talking about, a radio frequency.
Well, there actually have been studies done on smart meters. And one of the most important, I think, is, I'm going to back up a moment and say, one of the favorite ploys of the industry is to say that smart meters they emit far less radio frequency radiation than cell phones, and therefore it's safe. Well, number one, that's not true, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But number two, even if it was true, it's like saying, oh, you're smoking cigars? Well then, here, smoke cigarettes, because that means it's safe, right? And I mean, so the logic of saying, oh, they emit way less than a cell phone, therefore they're safe, is ridiculous. It's flawed, because cell phones aren't safe either. I mean, even the World Health Organization came out and categorized radio frequency radiation, cell phone radiation, as a class 2B carcinogen. So, I mean, obviously there's enough research to legitimate that. At any rate, one of the things that we found out recently is that the research study that the telecom industry used to say that smart meters emit way less radiation than cell phones, that research study has been found to be flawed. And this was first put forth by Daniel Hirsch, who is a senior lecturer in radiation at UC Santa Cruz. And when he examined how that research study was done, and it's one study and it's used by the whole industry, and number one, it was industry-funded study. It was not an independent piece of research. It was funded by the industry themselves, and it was flawed because they weren't comparing apples to apples, they were comparing apples to oranges. Without going into all the technical details, that's the gist of what the problem was. And when he corrected for that, he found that smart meters emit 100 times more radiation than a cell phone. Yeah. That's a lot.
I hope that alarms you. I hope that when you're hearing this, you're saying to yourself, smart meters ain't so smart. Now let me do more research.
We're smarter. You're smarter.
That's right, and it's dumbing. It's almost, you know, without getting into all those conspiracy theories that we could go off on a tangent, which people might say is a lot of.
You know, you don't even have to go
it's
anywhere near
real
conspiracy land,
Right.
you know, to know that these things are bad news, and to know that you know they're bad for health. There's privacy issues, and there's also the you know, the vulnerability issue, and the fact that they're just, you know, moving forward, deploying the smart meters. That's the industry term for what they're doing. Interesting term.
Very military.
I know. They're on a mission here to deploy the smart meters, you know, all over the planet. I mean, even in third world countries, they're doing this, developing countries, and it's yeah. So not such a good thing.
Wow. So, would you be so kind, maybe we need to take a break to do it or not, but do you have some websites that people can look at?
So, I mean, I mentioned ours, which is StopSmartMetersHawaii.com. There's also StopSmartMeters.org, which is kind of a clearinghouse website that has a lot of really valuable information about the smart meter issue. If you want to learn more about the negative health effects of electromagnetic radiation and radio frequency radiation, a good website for that is bioinitiative.org. That's bioinitiative.org. There's also a couple of really great YouTube videos out there. One of them is by consulting engineer Rob States, and it's a 33-minute video called The Dark Side of Smart Meters. And it's, you know, of all the videos I've watched, which are many, Rob does such a great job of just condensing, you know, into this little half-an-hour video all of the main points substantiated by research, and he is an expert in pulsed radiation. So this is his area of expertise, and he just explains all of the issues, you know, and gives us the research behind it as to why smart meters are not such a good idea. Other websites are not coming to my mind right now.
Okay. Well, we're gonna put a list of them up at the end as well. So when the show is over, we don't have too many credits. One of those pages we're gonna leave up is the websites. We're gonna give you enough time to write them down.
Yes, and if you want to check out the report by Daniel Hirsch on how smart meters emit 100 times more radiation than cell phones, you can Google smart meters, that very statement, smart meters emit 100 times more radiation than cell phones, and his video will come up.
And Hirsch is Hirsch is H-I-R-S-C-H.
I believe, yes, Daniel Hirsch.
Okay. Well, YouTube's a great tool because
it is.
We're going to put this show not only on television here, but we're going to put it on the YouTube so that all of you, not only can you watch it, but you can send a link to your friends.
You know what else I can point out? I can point out my website, my personal website, because on it I have a couple of YouTube videos called 8 Household Electronics That Are Hurting You. And my website is yourenergymatters.com. And in those YouTube videos, I hired a master electrician to go through my home with testing equipment to test, you know, radio frequency and other frequencies of radiation in my home, and then we videotaped the whole thing. And I also offer solutions in the videos because my home was completely saturated with all kinds of radiation sources. And I don't own a microwave oven, but I borrowed one from a friend and we measured that, and it was really scary. And I also borrowed a baby monitor, and we measured that, and it was heart-wrenching to see that a typical baby monitor was emitting 300 times the safe level of radiation, radio frequency radiation. Just really heartbreaking. And we also, we measured the dirty electricity from compact fluorescent light bulbs. That's another thing to pay attention to. Cordless phones, very bad news. Cordless home phones are worse than cell phones in terms of their radiation, yes. And most people don't know that. So buy a corded phone that's hooked up to a landline and have that be your primary phone. And anyway, I talk about all this on those little videos, but
this kind of stuff is really important. Sometimes when someone doesn't see it, they don't think it's real, which is why energetic medicine and things people have, or in your work, people have a hard time unless they can touch it and taste it.
It's one of the most difficult things, about this issue is we're talking about invisible frequencies. You can't see them, you can't hear them, you can't taste them, touch them, smell them, but still they have a major impact on human functioning. And, that part of my job with my background in subtle energy medicine is to educate people about that very
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I want you to know that it's really important that all of our audience here, maybe you want to watch this again, because I know it's going to be on, and like I say, it's going to be, watch it and listen to it and do the research and become part of an educated response. Because when someone comes to you and says, smart meters are fine, it would be nice to have some ammunition and aim them again. Because I think all of us, at many meetings you'll go, people come because they're interested in the subject, but then they don't take it further. Take this one further, and maybe it'll be a good pattern for a lot of things in life.
Talk to your friends.
But make this an active issue for you, because it's going to be impacting you. When we're young, we think we're strong and we can stand it all. As we get older, we see the things that we did 20, 30, 40 years ago and have done for that period of time accumulate, and I wonder why I have that problem.
Well, I don't know if this is the time to piggyback on even more what you said, but one of the huge concerns is young people. Because, you and I didn't grow up with these radio frequencies, at the saturated level that they are now.
Right.
And we know from the research that there's a cumulative effect. And so, the children, the babies, the children, the young people now who have been born into this and are, living with it, they're the real guinea pigs in this whole experiment. And there's every reason to be really concerned.
Really alarmed.
Yes, very alarmed. And don't let your kids use your cell phone. Their developmental stages, their system is way more vulnerable. They'll have plenty of time to interface with these technologies when they get older, but having them play games on your cell phone or on the computer and sitting in front of it it's just not good for many, many reasons, but particularly the negative health reasons. Yeah.
Any of the things that you want to be sure that while we're on, you mention? We've covered a lot of
area.
area.
We have. And helping people understand, the difference in the research and why the issue is so confused is a big piece. And then knowing that the industry is basically, advancing some research that's flawed. That's a big thing. And it's hard to wade through it all because the issue is so greenwashed that...
What does greenwashed mean?
Greenwash means that the proponents of the smart grid and smart meters are saying this is it. This is the best thing since sliced bread. Where this is going to save us.
Environmentally friendly.
It's
right?
environmentally friendly. It's eco-friendly. It's sustainable. It's going to make everything more efficient. Save energy. all of these things. They're using, you know, all of that terminology to talk about this smart grid, smart meter initiative. And you know, so a lot of environmentalists, that's what we want to hear. I'm an environmentalist. When I first heard about it, I was like, oh, cool, great. And then I started looking into it, and I realized this is not good at all. And you know, we can't just pay attention to, you know, efficiency at the expense of what? You know, at the expense of our health? What good does it do to have an efficient power system if we're dying and being sick and everything else? So, you know, but one of the things that has done is it's kind of pitted environmentalists against environmentalists with regard to this issue. And you know, that's been one of the hardest things for me is, you know, talking to some of my environmentalist friends and agencies who are behind the issue and saying, look, you guys, please rethink this, because it's not what you think it is. You know, it's not such a great thing. And there are ways to accomplish, you know, a more efficient system without these kinds of smart meters.
Well, I want to thank you for being, number one, a champion and a leader to step out on something as important as this, you know. And I hope it sets a good example for people out there who see, when you see a wrong, right it. When you see something that is uncomfortable to you, please reach out and make a difference. And in this issue, I'm just going to go back to it again because I think it's so important. Share this with people.
Yeah.
You know, you may see this show, but you can have others see this show. You can send them to websites and become educated yourself. I think all of us are in an age where, you know, we think that things are happening around us with technology so much that we ourselves don't have to be involved. At one of these meetings, who's going to write a letter that these are people that are absolutely against smart meters? We want to see more hands. We want to see people expressing themselves.
It's important.
Because, no, obviously we have politicians who want to get elected. That's one reason to mention it. Because they need to know how you feel on all kinds of issues. But on this one's really personal, and it's voluntary now, but, you know, like you said, Kauai had it, but it wasn't voluntary, and now
And they had to fight. To
to
stop that. And you know, there actually was a failed smart grid project on Oahu a few years ago. It ended in 2010, and you know,
what does a failed mean?
well, they installed 9,400 smart meters on Oahu, and the project didn't go well. And I actually asked the person who's in charge of the Maui smart grid what went wrong with that project, but he would not elaborate. So I had to do my own investigation about that, and what I read online was that there were communication problems, you know, between the meters and the grid, and millions of dollars of taxpayer money was spent on that failed project. And then HECO, which is the power company on Oahu, wanted to do a second pilot project after that one failed, and the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission denied their request to do a second pilot project. And when I read that, it made me wonder, well, is that why they now came to Maui? You know, because they got denied over there?
Right.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's a very good question. And so, yeah, there are smart meters on Oahu, and I don't exactly know, you know, what they're doing now, but they're over there. Yeah.
Well, I hope that this show has been interesting to you, and I know it's important. I want to thank you all for joining us, and to remember Debra Greene, because this kind of work that you do with energy work is really important. The subtleties of energy that's outside our physical body, and understanding You know, ever meet someone and you just don't like them, or you do like them?
Exactly, the vibe.
The vibe. Well, that's that energy.
The eyes in the back of the head. It's all because of our energy bodies that we, yeah.
So very important and very real. And the more you'll think about it and learn about it, the more you'll realize how important it is. When you were talking about meridians, like acupuncture meridians and things like that.
Yeah.
See, can you imagine acupuncture? I'm just going to bring it up. It's a different subject, but it's important to realize.
Definitely related.
Imagine that, how many years ago? 5,000 years ago, however many years ago, acupuncture began. And still we here in Western medicine only use acupuncture in a limited way, and very few health insurance companies cover it, and yet we know it's effective.
Yeah. Well, here's another interesting thing now that you mention acupuncture. If we were to look at other systems of health and healing that are in existence on the planet, aside from conventional Western medicine, like we have in the US, we would find that every other approach to health and healing in existence on the planet, as far as we know, recognizes the primacy and legitimacy of an energy body, except for one, and that's conventional Western medicine does not recognize, our energy body. And I have my own theory about maybe why that happened, and I'm thinking it's probably because conventional Western medicine was largely developed through the study and dissection of cadavers. And when you're working with cadavers, you're working with dead bodies. The energy body has already separated. And so, but other systems to health and healing, which are based on living biological beings, they very much recognize how important, how utterly essential the energy body is. So we're starting to, incorporate that a little more. Things are changing, and that's good.
And it's because of education like
this. That's right.
It's because we're talking about it and making it a subject and encouraging you, and you encouraging others to take a look at all this. So our bottom line is, smart meters ain't so smart. And we want to help you help others wake up to that subject. And we hope that if there's anything that you have any questions, that you'll direct them. You're going to see a couple of addresses to direct them through email to me or to Debra Greene.
Yeah, and check out my book. If you want to learn more about your energy bodies.
What's the name of the book?
The book is called Endless Energy, The Essential Guide to Energy Health. And it's a health guide, and we'll just tell you all about your energy system and how to care for it. It has lots of exercises and activities.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We hope that you will see us again, and make sure that when we end, to get a pencil and paper, in fact you can be getting it now if you already have it, and write down some of these addresses and go check them out. And be sure to go, once again, to StopSmartMetersHawaii.com.
Yes.
And is that where we're going to see the petition?
Yes.
Okay. So we want to be sure that you do that, and go to all these other websites and make yourself educated so that you have a reason when you tell someone, no thank you. You don't have to be nasty to them. Maybe educate them.
Yeah. Good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really a pleasure.
Thanks. Yeah.
Aloha.
Aloha.